Well, hello, Andrew. So I'm joined today by the CEO of Bira. Uh, Andrew and I go a way back in the fact that I supported him in taking this exciting opportunity. So I thought it was a great opportunity to go back to him and ask him more about the opportunity and really ask a couple of insightful questions to get his perspective. So thank you very much for joining me.
Hi, AJ, no problem at all, and good to catch up.
Fantastic. So firstly, what led you to lead, and follow such interesting roles with purpose and advocacy from that perspective?
Yeah, I've had two careers, I suppose. That the first 20 odd years, fresh from leaving university, was with hospitality sector. I joined Scottish Newcastle breweries, ended up on the pub side on what we called retail then. And I realized I needed to do something different, wanted to do something different, as much as I'd enjoyed working in that sector as well. And what I learned from reflecting back on my career to that point was that I really enjoyed seeing people benefit from work or from advice or from something I'd done for them, giving them an opportunity to improve their careers maybe, or following their judgment on investments into their pub and whatever. So when I decided to move on and find something different, I was really looking for that purpose, for the opportunity to help other people in business, really. My first opportunity came along with the Federation of Small Businesses, the FSB, which was my first introduction into the world of associations. I cut my teeth there, so to speak. I learned how operations work, what they do, and it is all about helping members, in their case, small businesses, to succeed. I then moved across to the Residential Landlord Association as their first CEO. Slightly different role there. It's about developing the company, developing the organization as a true membership association, and we did that for 5 years. And then I joined BIRA, moving back to high streets, moving back to retail, which I really enjoyed, but also a wonderfully dynamic sector. And there's a real energy about associations, because all we want to do is enable our members to succeed. And that really, when I think back to my career, enabling people to succeed, whether they're employees, whether they're self-employed business owners, retailers on the high street, everything that I want my business to do is to help them succeed. And I think that driving force has always been there. It's just associations really help you to exhibit it at its fullest.
I think it absolutely. I think it's really interesting, and from a greater good perspective and adding value. I think that's fantastic. And the more I
Yeah.
research beer, it was really interesting. Well, thank you for that. Obviously, in recent years, there's been lots of challenges and changes. The extraordinary amount of change for retailers over the past few years. How's the customer behavior changed in those recent years from your perspective?
Yeah, I mentioned retail is dynamic. It is, because it is effectively dealing with customers, and customers have changed over many years, not just recent times, but recent times, COVID, now the cost of living crisis. So three and a bit years where we've been seeing the sort of pace of change that we've never seen before. The changes that we may well have experienced 5 or 6 years ago really got accelerated through in the COVID period, and now to a certain extent in the current situation. And those changes are all about shopping habits and where people are buying. So we knew there was an increased interest in internet shopping. COVID, with all the shops being closed on a high street, apart from the essential businesses, people who hadn't used internet shopping before used it. And whilst it has receded since the end of COVID and the high streets have reopened fully, it's still at a very high level. So where people shop has changed massively. I think also there's significant change in the way they find what they're looking for as well. So we used to do window shopping. We used to walk up and down high streets, look through windows, browse around a little bit and see what we're looking for. Now you can do all of that through a screen. and you can decide what you're looking for, where you want to go before you even go out, assuming you're going to buy it eventually on the high street. So even the initial process of finding the product you're looking for has changed dramatically. And as a result, I guess shops have changed in response to that. You know, more and more businesses have websites, more and more businesses try to introduce experiences into their business model in order to offer something different to the consumers, where, you know, shopping online can be massively convenient. Another positive, though, for especially for our sector, the independent retail sector, we've got this trend now, an established way of working from home. And I know there's a lot of sort of discussion about, would it last? You know, COVID, we were told to work from home. Would people carry on working from home? I think there's very much a hybrid structure in place now. People's habits have formed, and the good news for the independent local retailer is that people are spending more time working where they're living, which means they spend more time in their local area, and they've actually begun to understand that their local area offers an awful lot, whether it's a cafe, whether it's the bakery, the butchers, or the local common retailer. So it really, working from home has actually given a renaissance in local shopping as well. Again, consumers thinking they don't have to travel 15-20 minutes in a car to find what they're looking for. They can do it much more readily locally. So those are massive changes in consumers' behaviours that we've seen accelerated in the past 2 or 3 years.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you know, working from home today, it gives you that freedom and the opportunity. You can go to your local, and I think that's sort of fantastic. There's definitely positives in the recent years. I'd definitely say that's one of those key opportunities. You get to know your local area a lot better, where I think before you just didn't. So no, I've definitely seen that.
I think there's a greater appreciation on not just what's in the local area, but actually the value of having shops locally, the value to the local economy. The money spent locally is recycled locally, of course, as opposed to being spent on a credit card with a company that may be hundreds of miles away. So I think there's a much greater understanding of our local economy's work and their importance to the communities.
I completely, the community is so important. And so reflecting on that, what key priorities do you see for senior leaders in retail over the next few years?
Yeah, I think we're seeing them come to fruition now to a certain extent. So there's we have to keep pace with technology. We have to really understand how our consumers are using technology. Actually, that's the biggest thing. It's okay saying, well, yes, we want to have a website, we want to be great on social media. All those are very important from a retailing perspective these days. It's about really ultimately understanding what it is that your customer's looking for you to do and how they want to engage with you. So they have to embrace the technology and the forms of media being absorbed by the consumers. I think retail really does need to understand the role it can play in sustainability and the positive impact it can make to the environment. Increasingly, I believe customers are expecting businesses to lead in this respect. Yeah, customers want to make a difference as well, but also they want to know that the shops they're shopping at are making a difference or doing their bit. And that's for small retailers, our membership. It's about small changes, but collectively they can make a real difference. It's about communicating that message of the eco-friendly measures they've done, whether it's the kind of stock they're stocking, the supply chain of change, and they're buying more locally, in any case, to reduce the carbon footprint on the supplies. Their business itself is more efficient in the way it runs. So all that messaging is really important to embrace, and again, engage with the consumers. So using technology smartly, understanding sustainability and how retailing can change in that respect. And then there's the challenge around people. How does retailing, which has been a fantastic way of introducing people to the workplace. A lot of us have worked Saturday morning jobs in shops. Many people have actually created very good careers from the shop floor to the boardroom in the world of retail. It allows that to happen. but we have to somehow now present it as an exciting place to work. I think we are losing out at the moment because people want to work in what are seen as more exciting places, technology, marketing, social media areas, and retail can offer all of that and more. But we need to encourage people to come in that way. Otherwise, we have a drain of talent away from retail to other industries that we need to bring back in there. And underpinning all of that, AJ, no matter, and there's some big decisions there for retail leaders, but retailing is in its most basic format, very, very simple. You've got to understand your customer. You've got to find the products that they're looking for and sell them at the right price. And you know, at the end of the day, those are, if you do that in retail, you will sell. The bits I mentioned about the resources, the human resources, you need to make that happen. The technology resources, you need to make that happen. And engaging important external factors like sustainability to make sure that consumers still want to buy from you.
No, completely. We've seen a massive focus from a sustainability perspective in recent years. I did a massive amount of work, recently on a few projects from an ESG perspective, and we've absolutely seen it being a huge focus. And I think customers are much more aware than they've ever been. It's really important that the individual, the business, has a real focus on that, because they do want the business to lead and to really take note of that, and shoppers will they'll vote with their feet. If they're not interested in buying it.
No, and this is a slightly generational thing as well, really, because I certainly know that my daughters, who are late 20s now, are more aware of environmental issues than maybe I am. I care about it, absolutely, but I think they care a little bit more, and that's the generation, and the generation below them cares more than they do. So it's a generational aspect, and I do think that customers will look at their businesses they engage with, whether it's a shop, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's an online business, but they will expect that business to have strong sustainability credentials in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's extremely important going forward from there. A slight shift, but then continue on the theme. I find it very interesting. Obviously, you've got a regional business. You're very focused on a number of different businesses and a variation within those sectors. Being based in the Midlands and having your head office in the Midlands, what advantages do you find that offers a national organisation? Is there? What's your you haven't relocated. What's your thoughts on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you're right. I relocated down here, and prior to taking this role, I think I'd worked predominantly in the north of the country, Leeds, Manchester, upwards, really. So moving down south was a new adventure, if I dare call the Midlands the South. That is, but it was from my perspective at that time. It is actually worked out to be. I can see now the advantages of it, actually, because I personally like to visit retailers. I like to visit suppliers. I am in London a lot when we do our representational work on behalf of our members, meeting the various government departments, ministers, and the Midlands area is as it says, in the middle, and you can therefore easily access most parts of the country. In the past, when I've been based in the north, the southwest has been, God, that's hard to get to, and it often falls down the priority list of places to visit. In the Midlands, everywhere's kind of quite easily accessible, and especially London, which is a fairly short train trip away, for the many meetings I've down there. I think if we were based in London, there wouldn't be any advantage gained, and again, I'd then lose contact with businesses in the north potentially, or the areas in the north. So being in the Midlands, I think, is the ideal place for us to be as a national entity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm slightly biased as I'm based in the Midlands as well. We're probably 45 minutes apart from each other, and for me, I've based my career around having worked in retail and so on, but being regional, I find it a great thing. But equally, with the access, I can get to London as well, so it works really well.
And personally speaking, it is, I've not lived around here before, and I think there is a perception that Birmingham is this kind of industrial dark area, but but Birmingham itself has had huge investments. The city itself is far more attractive than I imagined. But it's not, you don't have to travel far before you're into countryside, and very attractive countryside. And so it is a lovely part of the world to me, to live. It's a great place to meet people. And I just, whether it's personal or business, this is really I wouldn't move our location at all. We would gain no advantage from moving our location whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think having regional based employees as well, the team understand your partners, partnerships of what those are challenging, because it is not just based in the London, it has a wider spread. I'm going to put this slightly more back to you from a personal perspective. What piece of career advice would have stayed with you that you could pass on to help others when they're starting out? What really stuck with you?
Right. Okay. Probably two or three, I would guess. One was surround yourself with talent is one thing I would say. And I think in some ways I've worked with colleagues who seem reluctant to recruit talented people to work for them for fear that they might be snapping at their heels and want their job in a few years' time. And I think I may well in my early career have been a bit like that myself. You're a little bit about self-preservation to a certain extent. And really, as you sort of get a little bit wiser, and as a very well-respected chief exec said to me at the time, and she used the phrase "surround yourself with talent," and we talked about it, and it made a huge amount of sense. Really, why would you not have the best people possible working for you, with you? And so what if they go on to do bigger and better things? For the time they're with you, they will have made you look good and you'll achieve a lot more with good people around you. So, don't be afraid of talent. Surround yourself with talent is certainly something I would say has stood me in well over time. I think also never stop listening, never stop learning. It's very easy as you rise in terms of your position, and here I am now as a CEO of an organization. I think sometimes people think you have all the answers, internally and externally. We don't, but I'm well informed because I listen a lot, and I listen to my people, and I listen to external people. I read about external aspects influencing my sector I work in, and I don't think you can ever close your mind to what other people close to you, away from you, think about or are saying about the place you work and the sector you work in. And that links into that never stop learning. When I started, we didn't have laptops, we didn't use Zoom meetings. We've got this technology that has helped us in the workplace. We've got new skills all the time that are being developed, and there's, just because you reach the level I'm at, it should not stop me wanting to learn. And I force myself always to learn something new in the sector, learn something new about management, learn something new about running companies, learn something new for myself. I'm trying to learn Italian at the moment. It's about keeping your mind fresh and absorbent, but also sort of able to better understand the changes and the rapid changes that we all experience.
I completely agree. I think that self learning, continue improvement and listening and surrounding yourself with amazing people. When I was in a larger leadership role, that's exactly what I did. I'd always hire somebody who I thought was better than me or had that potential, and they
Absolutely.
would bolster you, and then you keep that network and understanding. So no, I think that's fantastic. But that's brilliant. And kind of my last question now, what next for yourself within your career? You've been very successful in your team with Bira. It's been a fantastic journey for both, and I'm sure it'll continue. But it'd be interesting, from yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's an interesting. That is a good question. Before Bira, I was with the Residential Landlord Association, and I think I got 4.5 years into that, and I don't know what it was. I was feeling a little bit not dissatisfied. Things were still enjoyable, but there's something missing. somehow. And I remember having a chat. We just taken on a new non-exec director, and I remember talking to him. And we didn't know each other terribly well, and so it was a good opportunity to talk to someone who didn't know me and talk this through. And he said something to me about, you know, a good CEO should never hang around more than 5 years. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I went 4.5, and sure enough, by the time I got to my 5th year, just after my 5th year, I'd moved on to this role. And I've now been in this role 4.5 years. Interestingly, as well, I don't have that lack of. I don't feel this is something missing at the moment. This is so dynamic. We've come through such a eventful period the last 2 or 3 years, and we're still in the middle of an eventful period with this cost of living crisis, and I still feel there's really unfinished business. And I think that's what I experienced previously. I didn't have that. I had finished the business. I'd taken it as far as I could.
Sure.
It's slightly different here, but I still think that there's probably only 2 or 3 more years, because at some point, and I do believe the reason that the 5-year cycle was mentioned is because companies need to have fresh minds, fresh ideas at the top of that business, and you can stay too long in the same role in the same place. So I've been here 4.5 years. I want to do another 2.5, maybe 3 years. I want to be involved with the succession around that and make sure that we find someone even better who will fulfill the ambitions this organization has. And then I'll be in my early 60s, and then probably think about non-exec roles and working on a more part-time basis. That would be the ideal element to it. But I would want more time to myself. I never envisaged working into my late 60s, as some people do. Full marks to them. That's their choice. If I could wind down earlier and maybe then do some of the things that I want to do for myself and with my family, then that would be great. But another couple of years, non-exec roles, hopefully, but more time to myself and moving on. But a sense of, after having worked for what would then be almost 40 years, a sense of real.
You probably deserve
satisfaction.
A break. Yeah, you
well,
probably
deserve a break, but actually looking back and say, you know what, I've been lucky. I've worked in many businesses, and I think I will probably have only had about 2 years of dissatisfaction in total with various jobs I've done, and that's partly my good fortune, but maybe also it's sort of a positive attitude helps overcome adversarial situations and adversities. So I would look back with a lot of satisfaction if we come to that. But
yeah, well, I
suppose the key thing is, as long as I feel I'm still adding, go back to that first point, you encapsulate it very well when you talked about adding value. I still got to feel as if I'm adding value. I'm my own worst critic. I will know, hopefully, before anyone else tells me that I've stopped adding value. Personally, I expect that to be in about 2 or 3 years.
Sure. I think it's because of, the last few years is a bit like cat years. It really has accelerated a lot. You think of, but it's a lot to hold for. But if you think of what we've gone through in the last 3 years, it has felt like cat years. It's been, just unprecedented. You're absolutely, it's just completely unique from that perspective. So it's really,
I think you're right, AJ. In fairness, we can't. We'll all look back and say, "Well, do you remember when?" Because they are sort of unforgettable moments. Do you remember when the Prime Minister asked us to close down high streets across the UK for an indefinite period, not knowing when they would reopen? And we'll all know where we were, what we were doing when those things happened, and I think it can go 2 ways, can't it? It can either, you can work through it and feel absolutely drained, or you can work through it and come out of it feeling actually, with more energy. I'm in the latter category, luckily, but I also recognise and genuinely believe this, that you have a shelf life in one place, and someone said it could be 5 years. I think it depends where you are, but I think you have to be very self-aware to make sure that you don't you don't necessarily outstay your ability to add value. And I think I've got to be honest with myself and recognize when that comes along.
No, well, thank you, Andrew. It's been absolutely fantastic to to spend some time with you and to get a great insight into you and what your members and the insight from there. So thank you very much.